A new update has arrived for Mario Kart World. We are now on version 1.7.0, and this is a pretty big update with a lot of changes. So let's look at the update notes and see what they've changed. This update is on June 30th, 2026, and the last update was over 3 months ago, which is the biggest gap between updates. That was the one where the item distribution got changed so that front running got better and bagging got worse. This time, we're starting with new content. Drill Rally and Boomerang Rally have been added to Knockout Tour. I've talked very much in the past about how it's crazy that there are only 8 rallies that you can play in Knockout Tour. Now it's 10, but look at that. There are 6 more coming. We don't know when, but this is very exciting. Drill Rally ends in Bowser's Castle, and Boomerang Rally ends in Whistle Stop Summit, 2 fan-favorite tracks. This is awesome, very much needed, and I'm excited for more to come. We'll talk more about this later. When you are using photo mode on the pause menu, you can now add stickers. So here is what the old photo mode used to look like, and this is what the new photo mode looks like. They've actually added more controls and changed some of the old controls, which is really annoying for me trying to adjust to taking photos now because I'm so used to pressing the plus button to make the icons go away, and now that takes me into sticker mode. But yes, out of any of the stickers that you have unlocked, you can put them on screen, change their size, rotate them. I don't think I'll be doing much with this, but see what you can come up with. Maybe you'll love this. This is really interesting. It raised the acceleration performance of characters and vehicles that had low acceleration. I made a few comparisons for this. Bowser on the Stellar Sled is the lowest acceleration combo. And as you can see, there's a pretty big difference before versus after the update. It used to feel so sluggish trying to move after getting hit. But now, accelerating up to full speed is 0.7 seconds faster. There are mushroom shortcuts that save 0.7 seconds, so this is a significant buff. And it's not just for the heaviest combos. I tried one that isn't even that low on acceleration, and with this combo, starting from a full stop back up to full speed saves about 0.3 seconds. Those were my quick acceleration tests, but now I want to say thank you to It's Manu for showing me a more comprehensive look at the updated acceleration stats. But before we look at this one, I first want to show you the charts from before the update, and I know this is a lot of stuff. We're just going to look at the dark red line. So for example, this point up here means that if you have 0 acceleration, such as Bowser on the Stellar Sled, then it would take almost 3 seconds to accelerate up to full speed. The light red line is for if you use a charge jump boost to help you accelerate, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So the lowest acceleration used to take almost 3 seconds, and the highest acceleration used to take almost 1 second to accelerate to full speed. One interesting thing happening here was that every step of acceleration that you gain was not doing too much until you get to level 8, and suddenly acceleration is helping a lot, and you get diminishing returns once again. So having acceleration around 8 to 10 was very strong. Now, this is the updated chart with less information on it, and as you can see, the acceleration milestone went away, and now it's mostly a straight line still with diminishing returns. However, if you look up here, it's taking the lowest acceleration combo around 2.3 seconds to accelerate to full speed, which is much better than before. And as it turns out, most acceleration stats are now accelerating faster than before, which means almost every combo has gotten buffed, but the lower acceleration you have, the more your combo has been buffed. Now, buffing the heavyweights is nothing new, and in the last update, Nintendo actually increased the invincibility time for the heavyweight combos. It's no secret that heavyweights really struggle in this game because of their acceleration and also a little bit because of their handling. Unlike with invincibility, I think making their acceleration better is a significant buff. And I can tell you right now, the lightweights are still better. There's just one thing about this though, which is that heavyweights have always been really good in Knockout Tour. And it's possible that we see heavyweights become even more dominant now in Knockout Tour. Speaking of buffing the heavyweights, raised the gliding speed of characters that had high speed, and that of some other characters and vehicles. Kind of confused about that second part, but I did a little test. I did it on a short glider, and before the update, everyone moved at the same speed on gliders. Honestly, there was not really any reason for this, that's just the way it was. But now, if you have a higher speed stat, you will actually move faster. There are not a lot of gliding sections in this game, but I did check out one of the longest gliders in the game, and the Bowser does creep up on the swoop here. It's not a significant difference, and I don't think this change is that important. It makes sense, but it's not going to be a big difference. Another thing that sort of holds back the heavyweights is their speed on rails, as every combo moves at the same speed on rails. I think if Nintendo made faster combos move faster on rails, that would definitely buff them, but I can see why they're not doing it, because otherwise maybe jumping from one thing to another doesn't work exactly how it's supposed to, because every combo has a different speed. Made it so the player can hop right away after being hit by Kamek's magic or Bullet Bill. I can't believe they made this change. So in the past, whenever Kamek comes by and transforms you, you will tilt to the side and be unable to drift or trick for a short period of time. And especially on turns, this can really mess you up. Same thing would happen if you get bumped by a Bullet Bill. Bullet Bills don't hit you, they instead bump you and have the exact same effect. Now, there's actually one more way that this can happen, and that is when you attach to a wall and then immediately go onto the ground. You will tilt and be unable to trick or drift for a short period of time. Now let's take a look at what it's like after the update. Thank you to Wampirosa for recording this. As you can see, after getting hit by the Kamek, you can immediately drift again. The most famous Kamek spot is the Airship Fortress Spiral because it is such a long, sharp turn. And now, as you can see, it still is bad. It puts you on a bad line, but you're not completely stuck to the right wall now. You can still go back to a good line, and this makes it much less damaging. Thank you, April Shade, for sharing this clip, where if you jump up to here, you can often get that little wall tilt, but then you're still able to trick now after the update. Right here, if you get a little bit of a wall attach right there, before going onto the ground, that would make you unable to trick in the past, but now you can trick immediately. I'm really surprised that they made this change. Now, don't get me wrong, I like this change because it's really annoying when this happens to me, but I feel like it was intentionally designed into the game, and maybe they just realized people dislike this so much that they'll just get rid of it. Adjusted conditions where the player can do a jump boost by shaking the controller when racing on top of the water. Oh, and by the way, jump boost means trick. That's the official name. This one is really weird. So in case you didn't know, you can trick by hitting the R button or by doing a shake with the controller. They usually give you the same kind of trick, but sometimes it's easier to hit certain tricks with R and certain tricks with shaking. I'm not going to go too deep into it right now, but the way that it works on water has always been a little bit different. Picking between a shake trick and an R trick when you're in the water has always been very important, because when you shake trick, it always gives you the trick at the highest point, which means the most airtime, and that can help you if you're trying to get more airtime. And this actually can be used to combo into more water tricks, because if you trick at the highest point, that means you will bounce more when you land in the water again, allowing you to get even more tricks. So a common combo that you would see in shallow water is when you come down from a big jump, you do a shake trick, another shake trick, and then an R trick the moment you land back in the water. And this is pretty much the only way to consistently get 3 tricks. But for some reason, this has been changed, and now if you try to do the same thing, the first shake trick will work, but the second one will not. And so trying to get this triple trick is, in my opinion, not really worth going for now. I would just go for 2 tricks. You can still shake trick the first one. This change is interesting, and I don't know why they would make this change because I didn't think there was a problem in the past. Most serious players just shake trick when it's better, and most casual players just don't even know the difference, and it doesn't even matter that much. Also, just adjusted conditions. Maybe there's more to this I don't understand. Next up, adjusted behavior after landing on rivals and made it so the dash time after landing is longer. This is usually called a head bounce, where you land on somebody's head, bounce on it, and you get a speed boost, but it's not a big speed boost, and most of the time this is just bad for you. It happens unexpectedly and can send you off the track. Nintendo had already made an update where head bounces don't send you quite as high, which was nice because disasters happened less often. And here's what it looks like now. Thank you to Katsu for making this clip. As you can see, the boost here lasts an extremely long time. That's actually longer than a mushroom boost. That's crazy. So maybe head bounces are good now. Made it so that the player can stop a slipstream when braking before the slipstream starts. So a slipstream, also known as a draft, is when you stay closely behind another player, and if you do that for long enough, then you will build up a really big speed boost. In general, you want these speed boosts, but there can be times where you don't want it, like if you are behind a red shell and you don't want to pass that player, or if just getting a speed boost will make you run into some hazard on the track. So this is strictly a good change because it just gives you more options, and if you didn't know about it, your life is exactly the same as before. Adjusted rate at which players can acquire items from item boxes in races and in Knockout Tour. Now this was a little bit confusing. I thought it had to do with the rate at which you can get items, but this was probably a poor translation. Remember, Nintendo is a Japanese game, so this can happen. Thank you, April Shade, for providing a different translation that says adjusted the probability of items obtained from item boxes in race and survival. Survival being knockout tour. This is one of the biggest changes, and you will immediately notice this when you race. As we all know, in Mario Kart, if you are in an upper position, like first place, then the items that you get will be worse. And if you are in a lower spot, like last place, then you will get better items. But what this means is that some players will intentionally slow down at the beginning of the race in order to get better items, because items like triple mushrooms and star were pretty much guaranteed, and you don't even have to slow down that much because it's the beginning of the race, so the players are very close to each other. Now, this is not always the best strategy, it's not necessarily a dominant strategy, but it is a good and viable strategy. And if just a couple of people do this, it's not really a big deal, you know, they're going for a different strategy, but if everyone starts doing this, that's pretty silly. Clearly, the items are overpowered. So what can be done about this? Well, Nintendo decided to just give everyone good items. Or bad items. Who knows? So in this example, I'm getting incredible items in first place. And if everyone else behind me got bad items, then obviously, I just win the race. But a lot of players in the top spots are now able to get items like triple mushrooms and single mushroom in top spots. And this is only at the beginning of the race. It's not like the entire item distribution is messed up. After a certain amount of time in the race, the item distribution goes back to normal. So this is specifically countering what I mentioned earlier, which is that at the beginning of the race, the players are so close together that the strategy called bagging, which is where you slow down to get better items, was a little too powerful. So one way you can think about this update is things have been more equalized. The players at the bottom don't get items that are that good, and the players at the top get better items. And this equalizes the beginning of the race so that you're not incentivized to stop at the first item set. And by the time the item distribution returns to normal, too much time has passed, and the pack of racers will have spread apart a little bit. So if you want really good items, you can still go get it, but you'll be so far behind that it's not overpowered. If I describe it to you that way, then this sounds really fair and really good. But I could also describe it to you a different way, which is that at the beginning of the race, everyone's items are completely random. And it doesn't matter what spot you finish the previous race in, because it's not going to matter what spot you start this race in, because everyone can get anything. And so if you don't get triple mushrooms at the start in first place, well, aren't you just now in a huge disadvantage? Now, I feel like both of these perspectives are a little extreme, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I have not really played online races since the update, so it's hard to actually give an opinion about this right now. One thing I can say for sure is that this is going to incentivize going forward at the start instead of stopping. And if that's Nintendo's goal, to fix the optics of this, then I would say that this has been a successful change. But is it going to feel too random, or will starting in a top spot be too overpowered? I think it's going to take some time for players to decide whether or not they like this change. For me personally, I think this is really weird, and also was a weird way to fix the problem, but we've never had this in previous Mario Kart games, so it's impossible for me to confidently just say, oh, this is bad, or this is good. I don't know, but I'm leaning optimistic towards this. While there are some tracks and some routes where my main strategy is to slow down and get triple mushrooms and star at the start, because it's just so guaranteed and safe, and I can choose exactly which shortcuts I want to take later without having anyone be able to stop my plan, in reality, when I play against good players, this is not how it works. It's very hard to get those items at the start without waiting for too long, and ultimately having to do all of this is, in my opinion, a lot more luck-based than just driving forward. It may work out really well, or I may get mushroom boosted and fall off the track. So in lobbies where this was actually a problem and the new update is trying to address it, I think it has addressed it. People are not going to be crowding the first item set and turning it into a casino. Going forward, it will still be a casino, but at least we're going forward. So how can I say for sure that that would be worse? I think it would probably be better, but only time will tell. As soon as I learned what was going on in this update, I went and found Denzo on X or Twitter. Thank you so much, Denzo. Let's translate this here if you want to read it, but I will tell you what's going on. So before I get into the item table, this is not necessarily completely correct because it was done on the first day of the update, and these are found through experimentation. We don't have access to the game code. But the way the item system seems to work is that from 1st to 5th place, here are the items that you can get in the first 20 seconds of the race. So we got some pretty normal stuff. Can't even get a coin in 1st. Interesting. But then we got triple mushrooms and boo. Okay, you can get this in 1st. Now, this doesn't mean every spot has the exact same probability. Probabilities are not shown here, so maybe 1st place has a very low chance of getting a boo, but it has happened. Then in 6th place to 24th place, you can also get a star in addition to all the same items. All right, let's move on to the next table. This one is very interesting. So this is what you get between 20 and 25 seconds. It looks like pretty much the normal old item table with some things removed. There's no bullet, golden mushroom, or shock, or mega mushroom. There's also some items here missing. I think it's hammer and bomb. Some items missing here. I'm not really sure what they are, but it only lasts between 20 and 25 seconds, so this is probably not a big deal. Going on to the final item table, this is exactly the same as the old item table from before the update. After 25 seconds has passed in the race, you have normal items again. So it seems like the main purpose of this update was this table. For the first 20 seconds, all the spots are getting similar items with chances at really good ones and unlikely to get a star. All right, continuing, made it so that players can see the Super Horn a rival is holding. I love this change. Thanks, Nintendo. In the past, you could only see the items that other players were holding if it was an item that you could hit if you run into it. So these were many trail attack items like banana and green shell, and also triple mushrooms because you can get a little boost from it. But other than those, you could not see any items that anyone is holding, which was really annoying because the Super Horn is something you just cannot expect and it just hits you. So the main counterplay to this is when you're in a top spot, if somebody clearly has an item but you can't see it and they've been holding it for a while, it's probably a Super Horn, so just stay away from them. But now you can see when other players are holding a Super Horn. I managed to see this one time while playing the new Knockout Tour rallies, and Wampirosa so kindly posted an image of it. Now Nintendo, just please nerf the odds of triple red shells. Thank you. Added a ramp to the race that heads from Airship Fortress to Bowser's Castle. That's so funny. When you drive from Airship Fortress to Bowser's Castle, there's this big lava section. And what's interesting about this is that it's not out of bounds. It acts like water, but it also hurts you because it's lava. So you actually can take a shortcut in here if you have a mushroom to avoid getting hurt. However, to get out of the lava, you have to do a charge jump. And with the timing of charging this and trying to charge while you're bouncing in the lava, often you just won't, and you will fall into the lava, which made this shortcut very annoying. But now they added ramps. 2 ramps! Wow, the update note was a lie. So not only does this make the mushroom version of the shortcut easier, but now you can also do this without a mushroom for a tiny little shortcut. I don't know if this is even going to be faster. You have a bit of a slowdown when you touch the lava, but that's possible now. But I've already tested this before, and you're actually better off doing this shortcut even if you have a mushroom. Going in the lava is just pretty slow and pretty difficult, and if you just do this shortcut followed by using a mushroom anywhere you want, that is faster than mushrooming through the lava. So because of that, I don't know how much these ramps actually change, and if you want to use multiple mushrooms or a golden mushroom to cut off even more, then you're probably re-entering the track on a spot where you cannot use the ramp anyway. Added support for Thai. This is a huge win. Shoutouts to Thailand. All right, next up we have fixed issues. There's some pretty big ones in here, and the first one is probably the biggest one. Fixed an issue where the time after crossing the finish line in time trials would be incorrect. And time trial ghosts that have encountered this issue may be removed from view rankings without notice. Oh man, there's so much to say about this one. When I did the world record reaction, I began with a joke about how I have the world record on Dino Dino Jungle, but how this one was achieved, which wasn't even by me by the way, it was Nightmare who did this run and just used my name, it was achieved using a glitch that just drops the timer time right at the end of the race. And it's actually more than that. Just executing the glitch takes a really long time, and I may make a separate video about that. I didn't want to reveal how this is done before it got patched, because this is something that could literally wipe out the leaderboard of every single track's time trial records. So now that that's over with, Nintendo, you should probably fix Airship Fortress because a physics change has made it impossible to beat that world record. Wait a minute, update to the update video. The Airship Fortress thing has been fixed and the record is beatable again. Thanks, Nintendo. Wait, if we're just making wishes now that can come true, can you make it so that some of the 200cc Mario Kart 8 Deluxe records can be beaten again? That would be really nice. Fixed an issue where when a player started gliding right after crashing, their speed while gliding would slow down. So when they say crashing, what they mean is getting hit. This was a phenomenon known as slow glider. If you enter a glider while really slow, the glider panel doesn't actually speed you up, and your acceleration is really bad in a glider for some reason, so you just stay slow. It's ridiculous. Like, this could actually end your race. There's nothing you can do about this. Unless you have a mushroom, you can't speed up, there's no way you can quickly fall off a glider, and there's no way you can quickly reaccelerate. You just have to take it. It definitely felt like a glitch, and let me actually show you one example where in this race, because a red shell was coming for me and I was unprotected and I didn't want to fall off the glider because that would be really bad, I ran into a banana on the track on purpose, but the banana sent me into the glider and gave me slow glider. As you can see from the map, I am moving way slower than everybody else. So what looks like it was a smart play was actually really bad, and I was better off just falling off the glider. So I'm so happy this has been fixed. Thank you, Funky Racer, for providing an example here. And before we start watching, the left side is after the update. So the left side is good, but the right side is going to get slow glider. So here we're going to get shocked right before the glider, and just look at how long it takes them to reach the end here. Left side's done. Right side is halfway through the glider and is still going. That's like 3 seconds difference. Insane stuff. Completely unnecessary. Now, there are more here. I don't know how important they are because I haven't encountered them, but I will show you some of the cool ones. Fix an issue where if a spiny shell, blue shell, hits a gold block or a broadcast van, it would break. This one is actually not a big deal, so I kind of lied, but it's really interesting, so I figured I'd show you anyway. Before the update, a blue shell could only hit things a certain number of times in the air before it despawns. I don't know why that was a thing at all. Surely they can just turn off the collision of the blue shell while it's doing this, but no, if it hits a gold block or a broadcast van enough times, it will break. So this is a way you could dodge the blue shell, except it's so specific. You have to be at one of very few spots in the game where this would work, and you have to completely stop. And yeah, this would probably be faster than getting hit by a blue shell, but also, you're probably never going to use this. Anyway, this has been removed, and I don't know why. Like, I don't really care because this is not something you'll really do, but I thought it was something cool that you'll never do, so why not just keep it in the game? I don't know. All right, next up, fixed an issue where a player would have 2 coins taken from them at once in the race that heads east from Peach Stadium. This is just translated wrong. It means to say where a player would get 2 coins at once. And what they're talking about is if you're going from Peach Stadium to Cheep Cheep Falls or Peach Stadium to Faraway Oasis, there's a specific set of coins near the boost panels that each give you 2 coins. Super weird stuff. They definitely just had this in the game by accident. And if you didn't believe me just from the coin counter, watch me grab 1 coin at once by backing into it. There truly are just 2 coins here. So that has been fixed. I thought it was a fun quirk, a fun little secret to know about, but I also don't really care that it's been removed. Alright, this one, I don't like this one. This may be controversial from my end, but let me tell you what's going on here. Fixed an issue where the player would be returned very far in front at various times when they fell off the course on various courses. Okay, so let me explain what's going on here. This is called a respawn shortcut, and you may have seen some of these before, but there are actually a lot of these on tracks with very big shortcuts. This is one I actually did on stream recently, where if you hit the pole like this and dodge an out of bounds zone, you can save nearly a full second. And falling off does make you lose your items and lose 3 coins, but if you're in the front at the start of the race, you probably don't have good items or many coins. And actually, it turns out after the update, this is one that seems like it hasn't changed. The respawn's still mostly in the same spot. Maybe Nintendo didn't know about that one, but there are some really big ones. So from Mario Bros. Circuit to Shy Guy Bazaar, there are some big respawn shortcuts. Thank you, Dim Sum. So this one right here on the big shortcut, if you go off right after the pole, it now respawns you back here. Whereas before, this is where it would respawn you, which is a little bit better. So Nintendo hasn't removed these respawn shortcuts, they've just nerfed them a little bit. And this is one of the biggest ones in the game. Doing the respawn instead of using more mushrooms to get out of the shortcut can actually save around 2 seconds. Most shortcuts in the game don't save 2 seconds, and this one makes an existing big shortcut 2 seconds faster. So the respawn alone is already a really big shortcut. This is the other one that Dim Sum tested, and if you go all the way over to the left here on, it's the same track, Mario Bros. Circuit to Shy Guy Bazaar, you now get respawned all the way back here. That's a huge nerf because it used to respawn you close to the item set. So now with the new respawn location, I honestly don't think this is even a shortcut anymore. It's probably slower. Here is another respawn shortcut that you can use on certain routes, including the Hearts Rally in Knockout Tour, and let's see where it respawns. All the way back here. It used to respawn you further up the road. Okay, there are tons of these respawn shortcuts, and I actually don't want Nintendo to get rid of them, so I'm not going to show you all of them. I will show you a few more though. Now, you might be thinking, okay, respawn shortcuts seem unintuitive, there's just something that you memorize, and when you fall off the track, surely that shouldn't reward you. And actually, I agree with all of this. But my first instinct is that I still want respawn shortcuts in the game. Why is this? Well, I did this whole thing where I learned all 202 of the routes, all of the optimized shortcuts on a lot of them, and what I found out is that so many of these routes have so many big shortcuts where you need mushrooms that going forward at the start of the race is not viable. Your chances are much better if you get mushrooms at the start and take these shortcuts, because that is a more guaranteed way to put you at the front. It's just a way better strategy to take the shortcuts, and not being able to take them often is just throwing the race. You're not going to win. However, a lot of the biggest shortcuts in the game, where you need mushrooms the most, are also ones with huge respawn shortcuts, and this makes front running actually work. So if you're on team front running, you actually want the respawn shortcuts to exist, because otherwise going forward can feel pointless a lot of the time if you know you're just going around a shortcut and losing 4 seconds for it. And if you want to go forward in this game, you actually want the respawn shortcuts to be here. In the race that I showed you earlier, where I fell off in this Ghost Valley section, in the past, I would always bag on this track. I'd get triple mushroom star, and then I would do really well. I would just win. But in this race, I actually did this in conjunction with other shroomless shortcuts and managed to hold a lead and win. That was on the most recent live stream that I did, and now I'm finding out that Nintendo hates it. No! That was my first thought. But now knowing how the item distribution has changed so that often you actually can get shortcut items in a top spot near the start of the race so that you can take these shortcuts anyway, that makes me feel a little bit better that the respawn shortcuts are being nerfed. Because remember, my goal is not to do a cool respawn shortcut. My goal is to be able to go forward and say that I have a good chance of winning even if I do this. And respawn shortcuts are just one thing that helps me front run. So as for this and the item distribution changes, I guess I'll just have to play more races to see how that turns out, because I could see my opinion on this going either way. Then, several other issues have been addressed to improve the gameplay experience. Please don't be something really stupid physics related that destroys all of the world records, makes them all suddenly easily beatable, or completely unbeatable for the rest of time. Who knows with Nintendo? So my main takeaway from this update is that the heavyweights have been buffed, item strategy and the balance between front running and bagging has completely shifted, and we'll have to wait and see how that shakes out, and there are 2 new Knockout Tour rallies and many more to come. By the way, this is not DLC, this is a free update, so if you have Mario Kart World, you can go play it right now, and if you want to see how to do the shortcuts on these new rallies and watch me play them for the first time, you can check out this video. The drill rally especially was an absolute blast, and I hope to see you over there in the comment section telling me what you think about these new rallies.